long.
under 2 hours.
The last one we did was long.
That does happen.
How long are your episodes normally?
We try to keep them to an hour. Sometimes they go an hour and 15. Sometimes, pretty cool rainbow. Sometimes they're 45 minutes or so. But generally they're 45 minutes to an hour and 15.
That's what we're going to do on this one, right?
Yeah, 45 minutes
You will not
2 hours.
based on that sheet of paper. No, you will
Cut
not
some of these
do
out.
this. You will not do this.
If you haven't looked at our
He was
notes.
like, write me up some topics. I was like, okay, here we go.
For example, hey, Angie, will you put the camera on me for a second? Just in these 2 sheets alone, Corey said we got like 2 hours of content. So
Every bit.
we're going to try and do the best we can to get
Depending on how deep a water you want to get into.
Yeah.
If you don't pay attention to a timeline whatsoever and you see me turn to the 3rd sheet in my notes, just know we're beyond the 2 hour mark.
Okay.
But let's go ahead. Speaking of that, we always start the show with upcoming events we have here at the store. I can't say always. For the past 2 episodes, we've started that. So let's talk about a couple things we got up and coming, and then we'll dive into actually telling everybody who this beautiful bald man is and introducing Jay again. I guess people liked you, so they let you come back. That's
Fair
thunder.
enough.
That was thunder. Wow. I didn't expect it to rain tonight. All right, so a couple upcoming events that we have on the docket here is one that I'm pretty excited about is the Sika Archery Challenge at Rocky River Archery. That sign up is live, right?
Yep, it's getting close.
All right, so we've actually got a ton of stuff that we're going to be doing at that event at Rocky River, but one of the main things that we're going to be doing is some of the folks that we run into and interview on those days, we're going to be bringing them on the show post-event and talking to them about archery and what their summer setups look like, and also recapping the challenge. Hopefully it's one of those people that I get to mock up on that back-off challenge. So
Sure, there'll be a few.
that would be fun. And then after that, we got the Father's Day event here in the store. That's going to be major discounts, vendors, food, activities for the kids, just a big family atmosphere, showing our appreciation for the dads. And then we've got the glorious garage sale, July 3rd through 5th. I don't think we need to hammer that one home anymore because we've talked about it ad nauseum now. So
Come get a good deal. That's it.
that's it. Come hang out. You might get shown on the podcast a little bit on our live viewing or live filming. But yeah, big sales happening that weekend, and this is everything from some waterfowl, whitetail, and some Western gear that you can get.
And everyday wear.
Yeah, and everyday
A
wear.
little bit of everything.
And then there's going to be a fishing-related event. I was told, and I quote, fishing-related event here July 18th. So now we can talk to more of that side of the table. We got whitetail guys here, and then I guess you could say wet-tail.
I'm just a little bit of everything. Where do you need to be?
He dabbles in everything.
I have too many hobbies.
Just an
When I
outdoor.
first met this guy at the gym, he introduced himself, and we get talking. It's like, oh, what do you like doing outside the gym? He's like, I fish. And then it comes to find out he's whitetail hunted. He's interested in going out west elk hunting with me. Now he's got preference points built up out west. He's like a Swiss Army knife for the outdoor
Duck
world.
hunted for 10 years,
I know.
But everything.
He's the one we're going out to
downplayed it.
Mexico to duck hunt with. So that'll be a lot of fun. But episode 6, we made it this far. We are back on the Sitka Southeast podcast. I'm here with Landon, my co-host, and the fishing wizard. Well, I guess you're the fishing wizard, but technically he's the fishing wizard. But Jay's back on the show, and our special guest, the one that we've all been waiting for, Corey Oakley. Sounds like a cowboy name. I'm actually pretty excited because my son's named Oakley, so I don't know why I'm getting excited about that. But you are the chief of Inland Fisheries here in North Carolina for the North Carolina Wildlife Resources Commission, which I have never called it that. I'll always just say NC Wildlife. But in this episode,
So does everybody else.
Yeah.
I know
Or just wildlife.
we were on our prep call 2 days ago, yesterday,
Yesterday.
and we were talking about like what his official title was because I wanted to get it right in the notes. And he listed off the 5-word company that he works for or the organization that he works for. And I was like, yep, never could have told you it was a commission. Never would have guessed that. But in this episode, we're going to be talking basically everything Lake Norman. We're going to be talking about bass management in Lake Norman, the F1 program, drought conditions. And, well, if we get time, we're going to talk about drought conditions. But mainly we're going to be talking about bass management, F1 program, grass populations, things like that under the waters of Lake Norman. So with that being said, Mr. Corey Oakley, thanks for coming out and hanging out with us, buddy.
Appreciate you having me.
He walked up and he said, "What is this place?" He doesn't even know what camouflage means. He's more of a
Easy.
We have some deep liking in here,
yeah
Green.
yeah.
Green.
Your side of the store is over there. It's not
I,
in you, but it's over
I
there.
recognized where it was. If you noticed, I drifted that way when
I walked
when
in,
I,
you said,
when I walked in.
I'm going to be over here.
Yeah, this side, I was like, it's not so much.
All right, so let's learn a little bit about you. All right, so obviously you didn't just wake up one day and become the chief of Inland Fisheries. So where'd you grow up? Tell us about you.
So I'm a native North Carolinian. I'm originally from New Bern, which is on the coast, in Craven County. Grew up there. My parents still live there. Grew up hunting and fishing in that area of the world.
You did hunt.
I do hunt. I dabble in hunting now. I hunted probably more in my youth than I do now. But I fished a lot, and I still fish when I can. I don't fish nearly as much as I want to. That's just kind of my job these days. But yeah, went off to school. Went off to NC State. Thought I was going to be an engineer.
Me too.
Got about 4 calculus classes in, and the guy was writing an equation on the board, and he was about 6 chalkboards in. I was like, I don't want to do this anymore.
I'm done.
I'm done with this. And so I just literally took out the course catalog at NC State and was like, I wonder what's interesting. And I saw this thing called fish science. I was like, I wonder what that is. So I went and talked to the professor that was kind of over the program at the time, and he sat me down and he explained all the things that you'd be doing, and I was like, that sounds pretty cool. He's like, well, you got to get your master's degree if you want to get a job in the field. I was like, okay, that's more commitment. So I started taking classes, fell in love with it, and I hadn't turned back. That's what I've been.
Dude, that sounds like a movie.
Yeah.
Like, oh, yeah, that sounds good. Let's do that. Next thing you know, master's degree. Oh, yeah, working for the state of North Carolina. That sounds good. Let's do that.
I originally started along the coast. I thought that's where I'd end up working. I thought I'd end up working in saltwater because that was kind of my love. It still is my love, really, in a lot of ways. I get back there as much as I can. And that's just because of where I grew up. But the NC Wildlife Resource Commission offered me a permanent job in the middle of the state in Alamance County. And
So did you begin working with NC Wildlife straight after college?
I did some small time jobs along the coast. I worked briefly with the Division of Marine Fisheries for about 6 months prior to working with the Wildlife Commission.
Is that an NC?
That's a government agency. They're in charge of basically marine fishes, saltwater fishes along the coast. We're basically tasked with charged with freshwater fishes and the animals that live in freshwater. At the wild, so there's 2 separate agencies that basically govern fisheries in the state of North Carolina, depending on where you are. So I thought that's what I was going to do, but they offered me a permanent full-time position with the Wildlife Commission. And when you're 24 years old, newly married,
You think that sounds awesome?
a permanent full-time position sounds really great.
Yeah.
And so I moved to me and my wife moved. My wife's name is Amy. We moved to Alamance County, and we have not left it. We've been there almost 23 years.
Nice.
Dang.
So been there a while.
As soon as you said, and this is just me having zero knowledge of fisheries at all, as soon as you said the division on the coast, my heart rate picked up a little bit because I can't imagine what it is to manage inland fisheries, but you're talking about the ocean.
It's a different world.
Yeah.
So
That's nuts.
you're really looking at different ways of managing populations. When you're managing ocean fisheries or managing saltwater fisheries, you're talking about things typically that are pretty migratory. They don't necessarily take up residence in the state of North Carolina all the time.
Yeah.
We have some animals like that inhabit freshwater, like striped bass, American shad, river herring, those kinds of animals. They come into our rivers during the spring of the year to spawn, then they go back out in the ocean to live their adult lives. But in the marine fisheries world, you definitely see a lot more migrations going on, whether it be red drum or flounder or whatever. They're not here in North Carolina all the time. They're moving up and down the southeast coast or in the North Atlantic. I mean, if you think about a striped bass, for example, not one that lives in Lake Norman, but if you think about a striped bass that is a natural river run striped bass, that is an animal that literally lives its adult life
There's the rain.
in the northeastern part of our country, off of Canada. They live in places like the Hudson Bay, Bay of Fundy. You look at those places on the map; it's way a ways away. Then come late winter, they start making migrations down the Atlantic coast, go all the way up in our rivers and spawn, have babies, and those babies go back with them, go out the rivers and go to very similar places as they mature. So
That's insane.
pretty cool life cycles of a lot of animals that live along the Atlantic seaboard. For
Yeah,
sure.
that's really cool. I never knew that. That is really, really cool.
Yeah. A lot of people think that fish is there and that fish has always been there. That's not what they're very migratory. They move hundreds, if not thousands of miles, depending on the species. So yeah, it's
That's
pretty neat.
wild. You remember when we went to St. John and we bought those bracelets and we tracked those turtles?
Oh yeah, for the kids.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Our Oakley assumed, I don't know why my brain just went there. We got a sea turtle and
You're
you
good.
can track it on the GPS.
I don't
like,
do sea turtles,
where
but
it
we're
is.
good. We're good so far.
Well,
I've seen a sea turtle.
the sea turtle's name was Chili, and this sea turtle was going up the coast of Mexico, and you could like
Did its
see-
mother name it Chili, or did somebody? Anyway,
I don't know.
Sorry.
It had a GPS tag on it, so I'm guessing that one of your folks down in Mexico did that.
Not my folks. Once again, I don't do sea turtles.
But I saw that pattern that she covered,
Mm-hmm.
and that was like my first exposure to the big ocean water and migratory patterns of a sea turtle.
Yeah.
And then you talking about what you did, whatever the heck you just talked about.
Well, I mean, you've seen like the O-Search stuff, and they tag on
yeah.
the sharks and all
Yeah,
that.
they're-
like,
I used to-
oh,
they
the
thousands
great
of
white
miles.
pinged off of the coast of Ocracoke or whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, it's up there in Connecticut now or Massachusetts. Like, I mean, but we have bass that we're trying to catch that are doing the same thing, which is really cool.
That
Yeah.
is really cool.
Yeah, we have animals that live in North Carolina that do the exact,
The
same
exact same
things.
thing.
Yeah,
That's wild. Well, speaking of, let's get back on inland here. You didn't come here to talk about the coast.
you're exactly
you,
right.
You run your own podcast through NC Wildlife Resources Commission. Hold on.
Yeah, we have a podcast called Better Fishing with Two Bald Biologists. Obviously, I'm bald. The other guy is
You're
too.
not completely bald. You're still hanging on there.
I've been bald for 22 years, so I'm bald. I know what bald is. Trust me. The sun tells me that I'm bald. The guy that I do the podcast with, his name is Ben Ricks. He also works for the Wildlife Commission in the Fish Division. He and I have known each other since NC State, going way back. And we really wanted, going back about probably 7 or 8 years ago, I was kind of noticing like, a lot of people were gathering their information through podcasts, particularly fishing in the fishing industry.
Mm-hmm.
And I started asking and talking about podcasts. And as a government agency, you kind of shy away from that because it's unscripted. It's not,
Sure.
it's not something that you can kind of
Regulate very well.
regulate very well. And you never know when something's going to go sideways. So there was some
And the
apprehension.
title doesn't tell me that at all.
Yeah, but I mean, there's apprehension to that, to say the least. But eventually, the Wildlife Commission decided let's try it, see what happens, and it's been very successful so far. We get a lot of great feedback from it. The podcast is a little different than a lot of other people's podcasts. Or a lot of other fishing podcasts. We try to marry fish biology or fish science with fishing. So a lot of times you'll hear us, we call it fish nerding out. We'll talk a lot down in the weeds about the science behind it.
Mm-hmm.
But then we try to tie that back to your fishing opportunity, like what that would look like for you on the water. We say a lot of times on the podcast, we're really trying to get our anglers to think like a fish and not like an angler.
Right.
Because if you think like a fish, your success is probably going to be a whole lot better.
You hear that a lot in our world. Think about the animal.
Yeah.
Think about what an elk wants. Think
Yeah,
about what
you gotta, and I've listened to a lot of fishing podcasts, and that's not really how that comes across. You know, it's more about the industry and about the product that you're using, or whatever, and all techniques and all that, and that's all great. I'm not knocking any of those; they're more successful than my podcast is, But
for now.
But what I really wanted to do, and what Ben and I wanted to do, is we really wanted to share the information that we have. We have a lot of great biologists doing a lot of great work. It's hard for government agencies to get that information out to the public. It just is. It always has been for whatever reason. And we want to share that information because we're doing it for the angler. We're not doing it, and we're doing it for the resource, but we're doing it for the public. We're not doing it for ourselves, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
So it's been a great avenue. We get a lot of questions. We get a lot of feedback. We get a lot of people wanting to know more. And so we got a little bit of a cult following going on, to say the least. We've had some weird interactions with fans at fish shows, but that's okay. But they've all been great. and we really appreciate people listening. And if you're interested in it, you can find us anywhere. We're on YouTube. You can find us on any podcast, audio podcast that you want to listen to. You can find on that service. You can find us. Better Fishing with Two Bald Biologists. That's the last plug, I promise.
Well, we're going to plug it in the show notes and everything like that. But one of the things that you talked about on our prep call the other day was funding behind the NC Wildlife Resource Commission. And we talked about there's a lot of there's a lot of misunderstanding behind funding. And that's one thing that you wanted to open the door to. And that's actually a perfect segue into what we're going to talk about next.
Sure.
So, break that down for us.
So, a lot of times when you're at a boat ramp or you're, talking to a Joe Schmo angler, I'll use that phrase probably a lot, and I'm not discrediting the angler. I just
he's
don't know.
definitely
I just don't know him by name. It's just a regular angler,
Schmo or
and they'll be like, or you'll see a lot of comments online, particularly on Facebook or Instagram or something. That's our tax dollars at work. Well, maybe not. Funding is the way the North American model, that's what they call it, the North American model of funding conservation works, is it's basically primarily funded by the users.
Yeah.
It's not a general tax generally on every citizen in the state.
Right.
There's some of that goes on, particularly in our enforcement division, where there's appropriations that go to us, but that's pretty minimal. Most of how we're funded, whether it's on the hunting side or whether it's on the fishing side, is through the user. The user buying gear, buying clothing, buying fishing gear, buying fuel for your boat.
Licenses.
There's licenses.
Permits,
But that's
like
a little bit. I'll talk about that in a second.
All right.
But all the gear you buy has basically a 10% tax when it was made. When it was made, not when it gets sold here. I mean, not that it doesn't pass down. I'm not saying that. But when it was made, the manufacturer pays a 10% tax on what they've manufactured. And that goes into a fund at the federal government level, and then it goes back out to the states. And it is specifically used for conservation. It cannot be used for anything else. So, for instance,
cool.
if you buy fishing rods,
really cool.
if you buy fishing rods or fishing tackle or anything like that, that 10% goes back to the states eventually, and the federal government gets very little. They have a little administrative cost in there, but it's not much. It primarily goes straight back out to the states.
That's a pretty smart
and
model.
it's based on how many anglers you have in the state and how many people, how big your state is, like land mass wise, and how many anglers you have. And there's a big fancy equation for it. The two acts, they're pretty old. On the hunting side, it's called Pittman-Robertson. They were named after the people that came up with them. And on the fishing side, it's the Dingell-Johnson. Dingell-Johnson Act. Hey, it is what it is. Dingell was out of Michigan. Representative Dingell was out of Michigan. I can't remember where Johnson was from, but that's the fishing side. And that's primarily how the fish division is funded. Then it is also funded through license sales. So if you buy a fishing license or a hunting license or anything like that, that helps fund, because we have to match. That's the state side of it, way down in the weeds. But
we like it. Go for it.
But the federal side, the way the grants work, the federal side is 75% money, and 25% has to come from the states, and we make that up through license sales.
Gotcha.
Okay.
So your license pays the 25%. All the other stuff, the 75% that comes from the federal, is all that other stuff that people buy. So
That's
it's
nuts.
So we're working. The reason I tell that is, one, most people don't know that that's how we're funded. We get little to no appropriations from our legislature in Raleigh. We get very little. So if you look at our budget's pretty small, but yet we do a lot of work, and all that work is really funded through anglers and hunters, shooters, boaters. All that's who funds what we do.
Cool.
That's really cool.
So we're working for. My group is working for anglers. That's who my group is working for.
I mean, you hear that a lot. I never knew that about fishing, but you hear that a lot. What we do out west, tag sales basically fund conservation in these large units out in Colorado, Wyoming, Montana, Idaho. Yeah. And I never knew it was anything. And it just makes sense, because now all these hunters are buying this gear, and it's just the whole model that's a perfect model for all.
Yeah, it's worked for about 100 years. It's getting harder. I'll be honest with you.
Why is that?
Because we don't have as many hunters and fishers. And so it's if you look at states, if you look at hunters and fishers across the United States, it is in decline, particularly on the hunting side.
I'm okay with that.
It's
It
well,
certainly doesn't feel that way.
it's
certainly
in
doesn't feel
well
that
the reason it doesn't feel that way is because land that you can hunt is shrinking.
Yeah, exactly.
So you're putting more people
Don't
on
need
a
data
smaller,
centers.
smaller postage stamp, you know. Anglers have kind of stayed stagnant. Particularly in North Carolina, we're kind of about where we've been for the past 10 to 15 years, whereas
you know
hunters
that
on a licensed anglers.
Yeah.
I think if you include saltwater anglers, it's like 1.3 million. If you include
That's bigger. That's more than I thought it would
salt
be.
and freshwater anglers together, it's 1.3 million. I want to say our hunters. I'm probably going to say this wrong. I want to say our hunters is somewhere between 300,000 to 500,000 hunters, licensed hunters.
Let's go.
Something like that. Now that doesn't necessarily mean they're all active,
Yeah.
because we have lifetime licenses.
Yeah,
and
like
stuff
my
like
son
that.
has license and he's
Sure. Yeah.
thanks
So
to this guy.
so that
Best
that
thing
doesn't.
you can buy for your friends
as
when
the-
they have a kid.
Yeah,
Buy
So-
my dad.
I will explain that fund, and then we can get into actual science because I don't want to talk about money all night.
This is
Because it's
leak.
very boring. That lifetime license sale is a tremendous gift on both for your child or your grandchild. Like my dad bought it for every one of his grandchildren when they were born. My son has his. All my nieces and nephews have theirs. It's a tremendous gift. Even if they don't use it, it's still a really great gift. But what it does for us as an agency is that is a licensee until they're 80. We can claim them as a licensee, which is federal dollars
Yeah.
to us.
Yeah.
Right.
So whether they use it or not, it's a licensee that we can claim money for
So
conservation.
you're making a bigger impact than the 200.
And on top of that, that money that you spent goes into a fund, and we cannot use that money. That money is the principal on what we call our endowment fund. And that is a fund that has grown tremendously over the past few years. But we can spend the interest off that
Right.
endowment fund, and we can buy things. For example, our endowment fund is purchasing a $50 million trout hatchery in Western North Carolina, and that came from the sale of license sales.
Wow.
That's sick.
That's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
That is cool.
Yeah, that fund is quite large now.
Yeah.
Now we can't
Interest.
but we can't spend the principal. But every dollar you put into that, the public puts into that, that's principal that we can never spend.
Yeah.
So that money is in growth funds,
Yeah.
that produce interest that we can then use. And
That's
so
awesome.
we've bought a lot. It's big ticket items is what we use it for. So like the hatchery is probably the biggest ticket item we've ever spent it on. But we spend it on things like an enforcement training facility, different types of buildings that we need, structures that we need for conservation. That's what we've used that fund for. We also use it for other things like big equipment purchases, or if it's a really high profile research project or something like that, we'll use endowment funding for that. So
That's
it's a really cool fund. And I would, if you're even thinking about your child hunting and fishing in North Carolina, buy it before they turn 1. And it's
Dang it, I missed
Yeah.
my other two. Well, I got one more.
well, you also have a chance between, I think it's 1 and 11. It's a lot cheaper.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really cheap at 1,
Yeah.
under 1.
Thanks.
Man,
And
I
then
thought the gift was way bigger.
and then
license fees.
when
haven't
I
gone
say
down any.
no,
so
no.
It's still a good buy.
Let me say, I say it's really cheap. It's a lot cheaper from 0 to 1.
Yeah.
And then 1 to 11 is another rate, and then by the time you turn 12, it becomes the adult rate at that point.
Yeah.
And you're paying until you can turn 50, and then you can get it 50% off.
Sweet.
I think
Oh,
that's right. I think it's 50.
I always tell people that's the best gift my dad ever got me.
It's
your
one of the
lifetime.
best
And
presents
he
my parents ever got
bought
me.
ours all before. My sister's never hunted a day in her life, and she got hers, but it turned out well for me and my brother. Like, it's been.
It's just one thing you don't have to worry
I
about.
mean, I got tired. I think at 35, I bought my lifetime. I was like, well,
Yeah.
I'm tired.
You
of
bought
it.
yours the first year we went out west.
Was it that year?
Yeah, you bought it. And then
Well,
you did
so
the
I'd been
safety and all
I'd
that
been
stuff.
buying it every year, obviously since whatever, and I just got
Run
tired
that
of doing
number.
it,
Yeah.
right? So I was like, well, I'm here.
There's-
Like, I'm just gonna
There's
buy it.
there's also discounts for first responders.
Yeah.
and senior citizens, I want to say, I don't remember what the age. It's either 70 or 75. At that point, it's like for a fishing license, it's like $15 and you're done.
Oh, that ain't bad at all.
Heck
Yeah.
That ain't bad
I
at
think
all.
hunting might be a little more, but combined it might be $30, $40.
Yeah, the combo.
Yeah,
Lifetime
the combo.
Mhm.
For them,
you made
it's
it
like
that
30,
far. It's
$40.
time to enjoy a
Heck
good
yeah.
discount.
Get it.
Yeah, heck yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah. If you've made it that far, that's exactly right.
All right, so speaking of fun, and I know this guy's really eager to start talking to you about bass management. So Jay was actually one of the anglers that contributed to the initial F1 program. So I'm going to turn it over to you and let you start talking bass.
So it got started as a lot of things have on Facebook, right? And this is just the way I know it. And it may be fed down differently.
I
don't
was
know.
there, so yeah. Go ahead.
But you know, somebody started talking about it, and I think it came from Smith Mountain Lake. They had been up to Smith Mountain Lake and had seen how good the fish population was up there. Had heard about F1 program, and they said, "Hey, you know, like let's get a group of people together, show NC Wildlife that we're serious. Like, let's raise some money as anglers and see what we can do." So that's, you know, I threw in, I know my dad threw in, some of our friends did, and they had, I don't even know how much they had, but they had what they had, and I know they came to you guys, kind of got your attention, and it's taken off from there. So can you kind of walk us through how well, let's take a step back. Let's maybe define what an F1 bass is for people
Sure.
who don't know, and then we can talk about how did it kind of hit your radar and the NC Wildlife radar and progress from there.
So an F1 bass is a cross. Well, F1, all F1 means is first generation. That's all it means.
Sound like
thought
a
it
race.
meant-
Not a car.
It was faster.
Not a car.
It's not a
I
car.
was telling him to go and swim faster
No.
than any bass in the lake.
No, all it
Take a
means
turn
is
at 10
all it
Gs.
means is it's a first generation of whatever. That's what F1 means in the genetics world. An F1 bass. So if you go back 10 years, probably longer than that, but if you go back 10 years ago, what we historically called a Florida strain largemouth and a northern strain largemouth, it was crossing a pure, so 99% or above northern strain and a 99% and above Florida strain, and crossing those two fish. And what you get from that is 50% genetics out of the northern bass and 50% genetics out of the Florida bass.
And can you explain to curious cat over here why you want that?
You want that because you're basically making a
Call
hybrid.
me a cat.
You're basically making a hybrid, and so hybrids in general, they have good and bad properties. But what they generally do is they generally grow faster, get larger than a standard strain of either one would do. So you're trying to get the good out of both genetics. So, for instance, a northern typically has a lot different growth rates. They typically feed after cold fronts. Whereas a Florida is going to attain a much larger size, will not feed after a cold front, but you get that big size. Northerns tend to feed a little differently, can be a little more aggressive on the feed than a Florida will be. So you're trying to get both those things out of the animal into one, so to speak. I will tell you, I'm sorry, I kicked the table. Didn't mean to do that. If the world just ended, I apologize.
Our spider's going to collapse. Our new upgrade.
Yeah. Historically, you know, you're looking for an advantage in the bass world because bass management, I will be honest with you, is difficult. And that sounds like bass management is difficult. Well, it's not difficult in the sense of they're sunfish and we know how to manage them, but there's not a lot of tools that are really effective in changing bass populations. We just have not had a lot of tools. There's a lot of things that are shown as tools that people claim are great tools to advance science, but in general, it doesn't move the needle.
What do you mean by tool?
So a lot of people think stocking for us is a tool. A lot of people think stocking bass is a really great idea. Stocking bass is a fool's errand. Just be honest with you from a biologist perspective. Now, a lot of states do stock bass. Most of that is PR. Just being straight up honest with you. It just is. The science bears it out. Huh?
I said we like it. We like the honesty.
Well, no, the science bears it out that very little of it affects the overall population. If you have small populations of bass, such as a really small lake, you can have an effect by stocking in certain instances.
Right.
But for instance, if we were going to go stock largemouth, just a regular largemouth into Lake Norman, yeah, we're talking 30-something thousand acres of water, big population. It's a drop in the bucket.
Right.
I mean, whatever you can raise, just dream millions. Whatever, it's a drop in the bucket for what those animals are already doing in the lake.
But is the argument not that there's a cumulative effect after you have the F1s in the lake and then they're spawning with other fish, and it's like, yeah, you don't have a pure F1 after that. You've got an F2 and F3 and F4, like multi-generation.
Yeah, but once you lose the F1, you've lost the advantage.
Really?
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's gone. The F1 is the advantage.
So even if it spawns,
if it's an F2, you've lost your advantage.
so you're not
because Lake Norman is full of F2, F3, F4, F5, F6 fish. So
Really?
if that was true, we would have an advantage with the largemouth that are already there.
Sure.
So what the state has done, what we have done in the Wildlife Commission is we went on, because we knew this was coming. We went on basically a crash course in research of genetics of black bass in our state. We wanted to know, what is the makeup of our black bass? And basically the take home is, wherever you are, they basically are all mutts. They're some kind of cross between a northern and a Florida. And there's a lot of hypothesis why that is, why we don't have straight Floridas and straight northerns. I will tell you, my hypothesis is this. Florida's typically hugged our coast. If you look at Florida bass genetics and where those kind of were, they came up out of Florida, basically southeast Georgia, southeast South Carolina, southeast or eastern North Carolina, and then just maybe a little bit into southeast Virginia. And then the northerns out of the north were came from the Mississippi drainages south into North Carolina, and you kind of have this, we're kind of like the crossover ground.
Yeah.
So we're going to have mutts anyway,
Yeah.
so to speak.
Yeah.
Now, there's been a lot of stockings of bass.
Yeah.
We've stocked a lot of mutts. So there's a lot of mutts everywhere anyway. So if you look at our state, if you put it on a map, if you look at our coast, you're going to see almost all Florida genetics on our coast.
Right.
You go to the mountains, short of a couple of places, you're going to see a really high percentage of northern alleles in those fish.
Yeah.
And then everything in between. And so I think in all the fish, and we have tested thousands of bass genetically. In all the fish, I think maybe we've seen one pure northern out of all the thousands, and maybe less than 10 pure Floridas, and they've all been on the coast.
Really?
Yeah, everything else is a mutt. So if mutts were the ticket, like if mutts were going to be bigger, grow faster, do whatever, then we got it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So going back to what's a tool, like this is, F1s are potentially, I don't know that they are, F1s are potentially a tool that we have not had. That where we can change the dynamics of a population of bass.
Genetically, you mean?
Well, no, like how they grow, how fast they grow, how fat they get, getting bigger fish in the population. We really haven't had that tool, because the only other real tools with bass management is really harvest.
Mm-hmm.
How many people harvest bass? Ain't many.
That I know.
It's a weird thing in the fishing community. Like, some people view it as taboo, and others not.
Well,
so much.
I'll put it to you this way: we've done a ton of creel surveys. That's interviewing anglers at boat ramps.
Yeah.
Forever and a day. I mean, you can go back 40.
That was one of my questions.
You can go back 40 years in creel surveys. I will tell you, short of along the coast of North Carolina, harvest of bass is somewhere between 3 and 5% total.
And excuse me, but harvest means actually take the
Take
fish home,
the
clean
fish
it,
home.
eat it. Got it.
Yep, 3 to 5% of the fish that are caught are actually harvested, which is nominal. That's nothing.
Yeah.
That's a drop in the bucket.
Right.
And you're saying harvesting is a tool for you guys?
Harvest is a tool. You can make, if you
fish, people.
think, so I use this analogy a lot when I'm talking to people about fish. If you think of Lake Norman as a big cow pasture, there's only so many cows that can go in that pasture.
Yep.
because there's only so many.
Healthy lives,
There's only so much food to feed the animals, so to speak. If
That's
you
also another question
thin,
you have.
if you thin the herd, you can get, but you got to do a lot of thinning.
Yeah.
It's just like herd management with
Yeah, you will get potentially bigger, fatter fish.
yeah. The
It's
plethora is
it's
not
very
there
difficult to
anymore.
do
Yeah.
on that scale. Like if you had a 1 acre pond, we could do it,
Yeah.
in a couple of years.
Yeah.
Can't do it on a 32,500. I mean, everybody's going to have to take fish home, and Bass World, that ain't happening.
So
Yeah.
so with all that being said, right, and we're doing these stockings, right, and it's running through 2030. Is that correct? The program?
So the project is going through 2030. Basically, what we set out to do is we set out to look at F1s, stocking them in three different scenarios. One is Lake Norman. So Lake Norman we would consider to be a fairly unproductive system. That's why the water's clear. So it's low nutrient, has low food availability. So it's going to be the tougher of the three for it to be successful. The next is Lake Gaston, which is along the North Carolina-Virginia border on the Roanoke River. We would consider that to be what we call mesotrophic, but middle of the road nutrient load. So you kind of have more nutrients, more food availability. And then the last one is Jordan Lake, which is just southwest of Raleigh.
Beautiful.
It is considered eutrophic, which means high availability of nutrients and high availability of food. It is the fish factory of North Carolina. It was one of the lakes I worked on primarily when I first started with the Wildlife Commission, and it can grow anything. Short of a striped bass, it can grow anything.
My personal best comes out of there. Yeah.
Big fish. So we're testing it in three different places.
Yep.
We started stocking Norman in 21. We started stocking the other two in 22. The stockings last 5 years, and then the evaluation lasts another 5 years. Now, if we got along in there and we saw that, the stockings were really great and there was a lot of production out of, we're getting a lot of return on our F1 investment, then maybe we change that stocking schedule and go further along.
Mm-hmm.
But the plan was to stock for 5 years, evaluate for another 5 years after that to see if this tool actually works. Because that is the question. There's a lot of scuttlebutt amongst the angling community. There's also a lot of scuttlebutt amongst biologists as to whether this actually works or not on
is
such
your
a large
unit of,
scale.
work? Like, what do you mean work?
Well, yeah. So that's a question. Like, what is success to
Right.
us?
I stole one of your questions. I'm
That's
sorry.
fine.
Yeah,
I'm not sorry.
That's a great
I
question.
gotta sound somewhat smart, okay?
When we first started the project, we don't really have like a number per se in our minds when it comes to what percentage should be F1s.
Sure.
Because you don't really know what percentage, how much of a population you have. That's hard
Yeah.
to get a number on how many bass are in the lake, so to speak. But, if we're stocking and we see them return and they're returning in a 10%, 15% range, I'd probably call that a success.
Do you have any idea of what that looks like at the present?
It's in the single digits right now.
Okay.
But it's early.
Yeah,
So I'll say,
okay.
even though it sounds like it's not early because
Right,
it's
yeah.
2026,
Right.
We really only have genetic data. So genetic data is always lagging.
Yep.
It's always a couple years behind or at least a year behind. So the latest data we have is from 2024. We have the samples from 2025 and 2026. They just got to go through the process of the genetics lab.
And so how's that sample acquisition, if you will, happening?
So when it first started, it was all through our electrofishing surveys because those animals were not big enough to be captured.
Okay.
To be honest,
Yep.
We were looking at fish, like that.
Yeah.
And those numbers were, if you look at the data from Lake Norman in particular, the first year was probably 3 or 4%. Then the next year was 5 or 6%.
And sorry, this is you're shocking.
Yeah,
and just-
electrofishing.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, we're electrofishing very specific sites in the lake
Okay.
that are not terribly far from where we stocked.
Sure.
We stocked them kind of all in different places of the lake. We try not to go right back to where we stocked 'cause
Right.
that's kind of skewing your data, but
Yeah.
That's our
trying
home
to
range.
Yeah.
trying to be in a general area of where we would probably intercept them.
So when you say electro, you mean you drive a boat into the cove. You told me a little bit about this. You drive the boat into the cove and it shocks the water.
Correct. There's a generator on the boat that generates current. It generates.
That's my kind of
It can
fishing.
generate both DC and AC. Most of the time, we're doing DC current, and the probes are out in the water. Those probes stick down in the water, and that current generates. And what it does, it causes an electrical field around the boat. And if the fish happen to interact with that electrical field, it will, depending on where they are and how they're situated, they'll either kind of shimmer up to you, they might run at you. Some of them will run away from you.
New fishing lure idea.
Yeah. Some will run away from you. Like if you hit them in the butt, they'll take off.
Interesting.
You'll miss them, but generally, and we run down the shoreline and work in and out of habitat. So we're collecting fish that are 100 millimeters. So we're talking 4 inches in size, all the way up to the largest one we can get our hands on.
Yeah.
And then we bring them in the boat, put them in a live well. We take them out. We measure, weigh them. Generally, with all the F1 projects, we're taking genetic fin clips off of all of them, putting them in vials, storing them, and then taking them to genetics lab and figuring out if they're actually F1s or if there's some mutt that's not an F1.
Can you clear up something else for me? I heard that there was a chip implanted in some of the F1s. Is that true or false?
Yes, some of them are pit tagged. So pit tag is just a passive integrative transponder. It's basically a chip like what you get for your pet at the veterinarian, so you can identify your dog.
Yeah.
It's the same thing.
Look,
Like we can wand the fish, and it will come up the code. And the reason we're doing that is so we don't genetically take another fin clip from that fish. We already know what that fish is. We don't want to waste the money. Genetics are not cheap, so pit tags are inexpensive. So when we take a fin clip, we pit tag that fish, and we're done.
Okay, so you don't come back and do it again.
Well, we come back and do the survey again, but if it's
Not
got
on
a
that
pit, if it's got a pit tag in it when we pick it up, we don't take its fin clip anymore. And we'll take the length and weight and all that.
You need to know all that
because we need to know their growth patterns. But we don't take that fin clip again because we're trying to save money.
Somewhat related but unrelated. I remember growing up, we used to crappie fish, and they would be tagged crappie, and you would get monetary reward for certain tags. That was part of the program, right?
It was generally, where were you?
North Carolina. I mean, Lake Norman.
That was, I don't know what that was. It could have been a biological survey, but it also could have been, sometimes companies will do that.
Really?
Like fishing companies will tag fish. They'll go out and tag their own, and then it's kind of like a rodeo kind of thing. It could have been. It could
like
have
a
been.
golden egg.
I don't know. I wasn't a part of.
I referenced that last one.
It just seems like an easy way to get angler cooperation for that. Nothing's easy in the fish world.
I've done that.
He's the guy.
It is not easy, but it is a way for sure, and it's a great way. So back to success. I'll finish that off. We would like to see these fish grow faster and be bigger overall once they mature. We're still kind of in its infancy of that analysis. What we have seen is the fish that do come back as F1s typically are the biggest fish of the group of their length size for the age that they are.
That's pretty cool.
So they are doing things we think they should be doing. Like I said, we're still in the baby stages. We're still trying to evaluate. There's been moderate success at Smith Mountain Lake with the program, not as revered as a lot of anglers think it is.
I'd say,
shockingly.
Yeah, it gets a lot of airtime for sure.
It gets a lot of airtime.
Yeah.
Once again, in the bass world, anything that's new and innovative, and I'm not knocking it, so don't take it that way.
No,
anything that's new and innovative that people can run with, they kind of run with, and then they don't really have the facts behind it. They see it one time, and then I don't know what happens. It goes in their brain, they shakes around. When it comes out, it's not right.
Right.
And I'm not saying that they're necessarily wrong. It's just they don't have all the information.
Right.
And that can be dangerous at times when it comes to trying to manage a population.
And so I got to imagine too, like one of the end goals for you guys is if you create a more revered population, if you will, right, that entices anglers to go after it, then that's going to increase all the sales and improve your funding down the line, right? I mean, it's all for the angler and the resource.
So I'll back up and say it's really, yes, we have to have money to operate.
Sure.
It's really not about money. It's really about angler success, about the trip that somebody's going to have, about helping that population be better. If you go back to the 1980s forward and you ask people that have lived around Lake Norman, bass population's been terrible.
Oh, yeah.
It's just been awful. That's how we got Alabama bass. That's how we got spotted bass, is because anglers were like, well, the state can't do anything about it, so we're going to take it into our own hands and do something about it. Well, they did something about it. It's been fantastic. Anyway.
I mean, you can catch a lot more, but they're not going to be huge.
But here's the thing about Lake Norman that nobody ever I don't know how many times I've said this I've been to all kinds of fish meetings all over Mecklenburg and Iredell and, Catawba County, because I worked a ton at Lake Norman. And it goes back to that analogy of the cow pasture. Unfortunately, Lake Norman is a sick cow pasture in the sense of there's just not that much food available. So there's a ton of mouths to feed, and there's just not that much food available.
So you see it more as a bait issue then?
It's a nutrient issue.
issue.
It's a nutrient issue.
It's the bottom up.
It is 7th grade science.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
I failed that.
Yeah.
So
Well, that's fine.
Yeah, break it down.
But it's 7th grade science. It is the base of the food chain. And that base of that food chain in that reservoir has to be broad. I mean, it has to be a large, large base in order for the top, which is typically largemouth bass, to be very, very successful. So where that occurs, Jordan Lake, Falls Lake, Sharon Harris Lake,
Well,
all those places that are really muddy,
Yeah,
hard to see through.
well, so
Those are the ones that grow fish like gangbusters.
but also to take a step back for those that aren't familiar, all three of those lakes there are no residents. Is that correct? Or does Falls have residents?
It doesn't matter.
I mean, I know Sharon and Jordan don't.
No,
Is that a factor
no
at all?
No. Can it be a factor in certain situations? Yes. The factor is, I will say it's a factor at Lake Norman, and here's how it's a factor. If you came to Lake Norman in the late 70s, early 80s, there were not a lot of houses on the lake. In fact,
And it was muddy.
I got really good friends that have lived here a long, long time that were fish biologists on the lake. They worked for Duke Energy as fish biologists, and they would be like, you go out there at night and you better know where you're going because it was dark.
Oh, yeah.
Like there wasn't.
there was no
Oh,
lights.
yeah.
There was
was
no
no
lights.
light to be found. There were no lights anywhere.
And there was no
Yeah.
GPS back then.
No,
either.
no,
It
no.
was pitch dark. You better know where you're going.
Yeah.
And so it has changed. The water's cleaned up. We don't have nearly as much agricultural runoff into the lake. You would think with all the urbanization that it would be worse water quality. And
Yeah,
it's
my brain went to like all the fertilizer getting dumped in from
But it's
people's
not.
yards.
It's not. And if you look at Lake Norman as a whole, its watershed is really, really small. So that's the water that drains into it. It's
Yeah.
a big body of water.
Yeah.
But its watershed's terrible in terms of actual size.
Like basically it's got to come over Lookout Shoals or you get nothing kind of thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
And yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Because if you look at the Catawba system, if you go up
So smart.
to Lake James, for example,
Yeah.
you got two arms. You got the Linville arm, you got the Catawba arm. The Catawba arm is really muddy. The Linville arm is crystal clear. It's like a mountain stream coming down through it. You got two different types of water there, and that mixes, and you get a lot of production there. And by the time it gets to Roadhiss, it's productive water.
Mm-hmm.
Then when it gets to Hickory,
Yeah.
it's a little less productive water
Right.
because it's
It's filtered out a little
it's
bit.
filtering out as it goes through the dams, so
Yeah.
to speak. Then you get the Lookout Shoals, still fairly productive water, but still a little less. By the time you get to Norman, and by the time you get to the lower end of Norman, there's a difference between the upper end of Norman and the lower end.
We found that out with old Tater Hawk.
We talked
Yeah.
about it in the last one. for
And
sure.
you got fairly muddy water in the upper end at times, depending on rainfall. Not right now, but depending on rainfall. And then you get in the lower end, it's gin clear.
Yeah.
And then when you want to talk about a desert, go to Mountain Island. That is a desert.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a desert. I mean, of all the cow pastures that's poor, that one's sick bad.
Right.
I mean, when it comes to nutrients.
Right.
And then when you get to Lake Wiley, well, lo and behold, here comes the South Fork of the Catawba River,
Sure.
and all that nutrients comes back into the
Yeah.
system. And so you're basically draining nutrients as you come through the system on the North Fork Catawba, which is all that water I just talked about. And then when you get to the South Fork Catawba that comes in, it puts nutrients back in Wiley, and you start gaining that production growth again.
Is it that, or is it the reintroduction of that Florida stream? Because by the time you get down to like Fishing Creek, and then you get down to Watery, like Watery's got a bunch of grass in it and everything else, but like I mean, they have largemouth, like legitimate largemouth. They don't have spots like we have on Norman. So is it the nutrients again, or is it a different strain and the Alabama bass just haven't taken over?
So I'll say a couple things. We're muddying the water, so to speak, a little bit.
Fair enough.
I see what you
At
did
the
It's on
end-
topic.
No, it's not off topic, but it's not always one thing.
Yeah.
I will tell you, at Lake Norman, it doesn't matter the fish. It doesn't matter if we're talking about bass or hybrid striped bass or crappies or whatever it might be. White perch, even the smallest of the fish at Lake Norman.
Mm-hmm.
It is all driven by production. That's what drives the base of the food chain is it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's true for every fishery in the state of North Carolina. It's true for every fishery across the country. It's the base of the food chain. Now, you get compounding factors by adding in invasive species, adding in things that don't belong, having too much of something, having too much of, say, white perch, or having too much of spotted bass, or whatever it might be. That is a compounding factor. But you take all those compounding factors away, and we go back to Lake Norman from the 1980s to mid-1980s, it was a low productive lake.
Yeah.
And it historically has. Even when the houses weren't on it, it was still moderately low productive.
I mean,
The production's just gotten lower because
Yeah.
that reservoir's aged and the watershed has changed. So the production hasn't gotten better. It's actually gotten worse. But you're throwing all them other things in there. Those are compounding factors that don't help it,
Mhm.
so to speak.
Right. Right.
Did that help? I don't know. Sorry, I'm talking a lot.
You're good.
You're
And-
here to do
I
that.
apologize.
I mean,
I'm learning.
we've kind of touched on it about 5 different times. So why don't we talk about Alabama bass or spotted bass and
Sure.
kind of walk us through that?
What do you want to know about it?
Well, I mean, you guys just recently declared it invasive, right? Removed.
I don't know that we've recently declared.
It feels
it-
recent within the past handful of years. I want to
Yeah,
say.
probably the past 3 or 4. I
That's-
don't remember
that's
exactly
recent
when.
enough.
3 or 4. Yeah. So forever and a day they were called spotted bass.
Yep.
Everybody still I call them spots.
Yeah, I do
I
too.
try to change that because they are a different animal. They are Alabama bass. They are from Alabama. Duh.
I would have never guessed
Never
that.
guessed that.
Green bow.
But if you go back to, if you look at our state historically we had basically, let me get it right, probably 4 species of black bass, which is that family, largemouth being number 1, smallmouth bass in our western part of our state, spotted bass, which come from the north, come from people used to call them Kentucky spots.
Okay.
I've heard that
That
before.
that is a species.
I didn't.
I have heard that before.
Yeah, that is a species of animal that was native to our far western. So if you go over the Continental Divide into the Mississippi drainages, the Tennessee Basin, all that, we had spotted bass, what people call Kentucky spots, native to that part of the state. And then we had what they called red-eye bass forever. Red-eye bass, due to geneticists, have been split into about 6 different species now. They're very distinct species, even though they all have a bright red eye. The one that's in North Carolina, it's kind of in that very southern end along the Georgia border area, South Carolina-Georgia border area, is called the Bartram's bass, named after a guy named Bartram. Shocking. So those were our 4 native fish. We have now picked up the Alabama bass. Alabama bass first showed up in North Carolina on Lake Chattooga. Lake Chattooga is a reservoir that is on the border between North Carolina and Georgia. In the very far, if you look at that where the state goes down like that, it's kind of right in there before you get to that tip.
That tip right there.
Yes, sir. On that flat line, on the flat.
Didn't know we had a map on
On
the
the flat line leading to the tip, that's where Lake Chattooga is. They first showed up in the early 90s there, and then they showed up in Lake Norman in the late 90s. That was the second place that they appeared. They showed up there, I think, I want to say 98 was the first one that Duke Energy found in their surveys, and then they rapidly picked up pace there. And since that time, so 26, 28 years later, they're practically statewide at this point. There's very few places that they don't occur now. They are highly invasive. They are going to change our bass in our state. By the time it's all said and done, we can get into why that is. By the time it's all said and done, our largemouth will be reduced. They will not go away, but they will be our populations of largemouth will be highly reduced. Our populations of smallmouth will not exist. They're not, unless we stock them, they're going to be gone.
Are they just not competitive enough or aggressive enough?
Well, I'll explain that. And I'll say, so of the native ones, I don't know what they'll do to Bartram's bass. My guess is they'll eradicate them as well if they get mixed in with them. But they will eliminate smallmouth and spotted bass for the most part.
Now, when you say eliminate, you mean just knock them off the food chain, or they actually attack them?
No, the populations will just disappear.
Yeah,
and so
because of food.
here's how
Yeah.
no, it's actually not it's about reproduction.
Oh.
Here's how they do it differently with different species of bass. Largemouth bass, why a largemouth will still be here is they don't really hybridize with largemouth very much. They do early on in the invasion when there's a lot of them, when they first come on the scene and they're interacting with largemouth in their habitats. It's what happened at Lake Norman. You could find a Alabama bass, largemouth bass hybrid in the early years. It's rare now. And the reason for that is Alabama bass, as they keep multiplying and get more and more, they tend to push largemouth out of the habitat. So they're aggressive They push the largemouth bass basically to the back. That's why typically most of the largemouth that you'll find on Lake Norman are in the backs of coves, up the river. And so if you have a Alabama bass dominated lake and you're really looking for that largemouth, generally, not all, there's going to be an outside chance. So don't, oh, he's wrong. I caught a largemouth here.
I didn't know what he was talking
The
about.
guy's an idiot. But generally, the largemouth have been pushed to the backs of coves. So if you think about, all the creeks at Norman, you think about Stumpy Creek and Beaver Creek and Mountain Creek, and, way up the river, Little's Creek, all those creeks. You go way in the back of those, you will likely find largemouth.
So pause there for a second. How does longer periods of drought affect that? Because technically, if we're in a major drought,
Wow,
He's gone. He's just going
Well-
way around now.
Come on.
my simple brain just went, okay, if they're getting pushed back to the back of the cove and the back of the cove moves up,
Yeah, they'll just come. They'll just come down. To
okay,
that
so it doesn't
habitat.
hurt their chances at all.
Well, it may or may not. We can talk about that. We can talk
reduce
about droughts
bonsai.
later, but
We don't have to talk about that. You
Yeah.
keep going.
Go.
The
But-
monkey put the
no,
symbol down
you're
and asked the
great.
question.
So generally, what it's doing to largemouth across the state is pushing them into habitats that Alabama bass they'll go to, but they don't love. They don't love that backwater area, and so that's kind of where largemouth end up. Alabama bass will be primarily on main points, out in the river channel, in deeper water. They're a different animal.
Is that because I view them as being more nomadic with bait fish? Is that the reason for that?
They're much more of a schooling fish
Okay,
than
yeah,
largemouth
yeah.
are. If that makes them nomadic, yeah.
That would be my definition. Yeah.
Yeah, they definitely
Big
are.
words over here.
They're definitely in bigger groups than largemouth
Yeah.
typically are. Largemouth
Yes.
are fairly solitary animals,
Yeah.
except for certain times of the year. You can obviously you can find largemouth in groups. Don't write me. I understand that.
Don't write me.
But generally, they're fairly solitary animals for the most part.
Yeah.
Whereas you find one Alabama bass, you might find 100. I mean, really, you can.
Like,
I mean,
really? Yeah. And
to the point that you can't catch anything else but those things.
yeah, and they all seem to be generally the same size. Like it's
Yes.
just clone after clone
Yep.
after clone.
And so that's what they're doing to largemouth. So then you go into smallmouth and into our native spotted bass. What they're doing is they're hybridizing them out of the system. I call it, it's not a scientific word, it's just my word. I call it gene swamping. They're gene swamping them. So basically, going back to that hybrid cross, right?
Yeah.
You got a pure strain Alabama and a pure strain smallmouth. They have a baby. They have a F1 cross. Most people know them as mean mouths. Get real big, look fantastic, real colored up, great. Everybody's like, "Oh, this is super aggressive, super great." Well, when you see mean mouse, you're on the road to destruction for smallmouth.
Really?
By the time you see that.
Man.
And then what happens is Alabama bass just keep pouring their genes into the system to the point that you'll go 50-50, 70-30, 80-20, 90-10, 100%. And you got no smallmouth genes left.
We're banging the table.
He's
too much.
beating on that table.
Oh,
ain't he?
I'm sorry.
Sound like he's playing the drums.
Sorry, I apologize. I won't beat
You
on
missed your
camera.
call, and you should have been a drummer.
But so you end up with all Alabama bass, and the smallmouth bass just go off the radar and they don't exist anymore. We have some decisions to make as a state of if we want to keep smallmouth in our state. Are we going to have a smallmouth bass stocking program? That's a lot like our hybrid striped bass program. They're not going to be they will reproduce, but they're not going to be beneficial to smallmouth. They're just going to turn into hybrids and then go away.
I thought our hybrid striped bass were infertile.
They are.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, these fish would be fertile, but it would be the same principle of we're stocking smallmouth because we want smallmouth in the system.
Right.
But we know that if we stop stocking smallmouth, they're going to disappear.
Right.
They're not going to.
Gotcha.
They're not going to exist.
wild.
They'll just go away.
That's crazy.
And so that's what they're doing in the western part of the state. You name a reservoir west of Marion, North Carolina, that has smallmouth in it, it's pretty much happened at this point. They're all in different stages. You go back to Lake Chateaugue, the very first one, smallmouth don't exist. You go to Lake James, which is right outside of Marion, between Marion and Morganton. Smallmouth still exists there, but they're in much reduced numbers. The population is getting smaller and smaller. What we have found is Alabama bass take about somewhere between 20 and 25 years, depending on the lake, to really just whatever they're going to do is going to happen in a 25 year period.
And that's as soon as you start seeing them in the lake, the clock begins.
The clock's on.
Yeah.
The clock is on. We have found they do typically take over a unproductive lake like Lake Norman a lot faster than a productive lake. So it goes back to when we get down to these places that Alabama bass exist, but yet we still got a lot of largemouth.
Yeah.
Well, it's probably because the lake's probably more productive. Like
Right.
Lake Hickory, for example.
Right.
They've been in Lake Hickory for a long, long time. And forever and a day, we as biologists thought, oh, that production means something. Like it may stop them from overtaking the lake. No, it just takes them longer. It really doesn't stop them. It's just it's a slower progression, but the progression is still happening. You're probably going to grow a little prettier Alabama bass. They're going to get a little bigger.
Because
you
more
have more production nutrients levels. But the bad part about Alabama bass is, well, there's a lot of bad parts, but the one thing about Alabama bass is they reproduce. They're so highly fecund is the word, meaning they have a lot of babies, and their babies are very successful.
Can't wait to use that in a sentence later.
Yeah, you can use that. Quote me.
Write them too.
But they're you can write me too.
You write me on that.
But they're so highly fecund that they just outproduce everything.
Okay.
And so that's why you get that cookie cutter.
Yeah.
Goes back to mouths to feed, right?
Yeah.
If I got a ton of mouths to feed, they're not going to grow very fast, and they're all going to look about the same size. And that is a very typical Alabama bass fishery. I know there's bigger fish at Lake Norman. I get it. There's 3-pounders. I'm sure there's a 5-pounder out there.
There are. They pull like crazy too.
But they are not common. Would
No.
you say that?
No, absolutely
would
not.
you say that's the common fish of the lake?
No, you can go out and have a dink fest and catch, 31-pounders. And it's a lot of fun to set a hook, but you're not going to win any money at the end of the day.
No.
Thanks for showing up.
There's a lot of, and that is going to be, in most places, that is going to be our bass fisheries, unless we do something completely different. But I don't.
That's scary.
There's not a look. I've been preaching this for a decade. Nobody listens to me. They think I'm crazy, and that's fine. There's no magic bullet to solve it. Once they're there and once they've been introduced, and it's all been angler introduced. Like this has not been like people want to say, no,
They carted them up.
We are guilty of a lot of things at the
lake.
Wildlife Commission, but we are not guilty of bringing Alabama bass. They brought themselves through angler introductions. And people were well-meaning. I'm not saying – we have a phrase – we have several phrases on our podcast. The number one phrase we say on every podcast is don't move fish. Don't move fish, because you don't know what that movement is going to mean to the population that you just moved them to.
Right.
And it's also illegal, but you're not going to get caught most of the time unless you just broadcast it. You're not going to get caught.
You look like you have a question.
I was just wondering, is there any way that we as people can stop the decline? Or it sounds like it's inevitable, like the smallmouth
Harvest
bass.
your fish.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the only thing the reason we don't have rules we've basically taken off all the rules on spotted bass or Alabama bass.
So they're the coyotes of our world.
They're pretty much the coyotes of the fish world. A little bit different, but similar. The reason we've done that is to allow people to harvest those fish because we don't think, one, it's not going to get rid of them. So don't have this thought process. The F1 program's not going to get rid of them. We didn't start the F1 program because of spotted bass. We started the F1 program to try to enhance largemouth bass.
Right.
It's still F1 is still a largemouth bass, and it's still going to have the same interaction with an Alabama bass, whether it's an F1 or a mutt, regardless.
Right.
So let's knock that out of the park because a lot of times I hear, well, F1s will get rid of Alabama. No, not. Ain't
That was one thing you said on our prep call. You're like, I got to debunk that myth.
Yeah, that myth's got to be debunked because they're still largemouth. F1s are still largemouth, and so they're just going to get pushed just like a regular largemouth. But of the largemouth that are there, maybe they're bigger, fatter,
Sure.
That kind of thing. That's the reason for the F1 program. So harvesting those fish will thin the herd down and maybe provide a little bit better opportunity for largemouth, slightly better. But what it really might do, if you do it well enough, is provide better Alabama bass, like better quality Alabama bass. Because right now, for the most part, you're stuck with a lot of little guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, it goes back to that initial conversation we had. It would make the entire ecosystem healthier if you pull some out.
Yeah, I mean,
managing the herd.
I mean, reservoir management is difficult because it's an artificial system. It wasn't here 200 years ago, So you're managing an artificial system, but, the thing that was said to me when Alabama bass first showed up, well, it's just in Lake Norman. Okay? So from that moment in 1998, when it was said, well, it was said to me later. It was said to me probably in the early 2000s. It's just in Lake Norman. Well, from that moment, we have now spread them as anglers, and I'm one of them. We have now spread them to 25, 30 reservoirs in our state and every river drainage in our state, short of the Noose. And the Noose might have them. We're not sure. But all those coastal rivers, like you talking about, did you see the BASS tournament on the Pasquotank River where the man caught 120-something pounds of largemouth and won the tournament? I mean, those Alabama bass, depending on the salt wedge, are headed to the Pasquotank River. They're already in the Roanoke. And people are like, well, they won't go there. That's what they've said about them all along. They're not going to do well there. They've done well. Every time they show up, they do well.
Yeah.
Like, stop moving fish.
Yeah.
They're in the Tar River, which is the river just south of the Roanoke. They're in the Cape Fear River. They're now in the drainage above Jordan Lake.
So they're coming for Jordan.
It's just they were found in Lake McIntosh this year. So, yeah, they're coming.
Are we doing anything to try to stop? There's nothing we can do.
Once an animal is reproducing in a system, there is literally very little, particularly a mobile animal, a fish.
It's more
something
and
that
more
swims.
complicated the longer it's there.
Something that swims. Once it's in the system, there's not like I said, there's not a magic bullet.
Yeah.
And what effect that has on largemouth at Jordan, I don't know. I mean, we've had other invasive animals at Jordan, like we've had flathead catfish for 30 years.
Right.
Hasn't really taken off.
Right.
So maybe there's enough nutrients there because it is the most nutrient place. Maybe there's enough nutrients there that it can maintain it. I don't know. But it will have an effect on largemouth, period. It will have some effect. It just will.
Yeah.
And so my take on, if nobody listens to anything else I say tonight, is don't move fish. It has detrimental effects. And I can give you this is just Alabama bass. I can talk about all kinds of species of fish that have been moved around in our state that have detrimental effects that nobody ever saw coming. But once they got established, like, oh, well, that's not great.
Now, similar topic, Lake Lanier. Are those pure spots or are those Alabama bass, if you know?
Those are Alabama bass.
But they have seemingly have a completely different, I don't know. I mean, they're just bigger down there.
Yep.
Right? I mean, what's the deal there? Is it more?
I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know the
maybe don't
nutrient
know enough.
load. I don't know the differences. Every reservoir is different. A lot of people want to compare body of water to body of water, and you really can't do that. You have to look at it in the system that it's in.
Right.
when I worked at Lake Norman a lot, it's like, oh man, I wish our fish were like East Tennessee. Well, yeah, I wish we had the water of East Tennessee.
Yeah.
I mean, that it's apples to oranges. I mean, the growth rate potential in the East Tennessee is different than our growth potential, and we should grow them like Texas. Yeah,
that'd be great. Let's do that.
That'd be fantastic.
Yeah.
Let's be hot and have 3 more months of growing season.
Yeah,
that'd be fantastic.
I mean, you're
And not as much temperature fluctuations.
you're doing this. I want it to be. Why don't we have a share lunker program? There's a lot of reasons for that, but the truth of the matter is the growth potential is just not there.
You gotta have a lunker to have a share lunker program.
We have lunkers. It's just I've seen the lunkers.
Few and far between.
But they are not. They're not nearly as common as you would find
Right.
in Texas or Florida or southern Alabama or southern Mississippi.
You wanna explain share lunker real quick?
Yeah.
Share lunkers program. I think Texas, maybe Oklahoma and Arkansas.
Yeah.
I might be.
I don't know about Arkansas, but definitely the first 2.
They have a program where if you catch a fish, I believe it's over 13 pounds, maybe it's over
Jeez.
12.
That's a shark.
If you bring it to their hatchery, they'll spawn it out. They'll take those animals back. The theory is that genetics will make bigger fish over time because that genetics made a big fish at one time.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. Congratulations. A lot of it is, I mean, there is science behind it, so I'm not knocking the program. A lot of it is, and a lot of what we do is public relations. I mean, it is. It gives ownership to the angler. It gives, opportunities. Anglers feel like they're making a difference, that kind of stuff. And all that's great. The science is out as to whether it actually produces more bigger fish over a period of time. That science is still out there.
It just seems like logic, though. I mean, you look at like a big human being breeding with another big human being, they produce a big human being.
I'm not saying it doesn't work. So I'm just telling you, we need to wait on the science.
Candy apples.
Yeah.
Candy apples. No.
Yeah. No, I get what you're saying.
Right.
Big fish should breed another big fish,
Right.
but they might not.
We just need to temper our enthusiasm about that. Just
Yeah.
yet? Okay.
Yeah. Just
fine.
temper your
All right.
enthusiasm. I'm not saying it's not. It's a lot of.
I'm here for the PR part of it.
It is
all
a
right?
lot.
I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying I'm right.
But no, I'm not saying that either. But it is a lot of work.
Yeah.
There's a lot of work involved behind it. A lot of the share lunker programs have been basically paid for through corporations.
Yeah. Right.
There's a lot of corporation behind it
Yep.
that we currently don't have.
Sure.
And there's a lot of work that's involved behind share lunker program.
Yeah,
And so, and like I said, the science is still out as to how successful it is. I think there's some science that shows it is somewhat successful. I'm not trying to rain on share lunker parade.
No.
If somebody wants to do a share lunker program, God bless, Godspeed. I don't particularly want to do it. One, we just don't have the facilities to do it.
In the manpower,
And the people power
Yeah.
behind that
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
get it to work.
Right.
Texas is a big state. They got a lot of
Yeah.
folks working
Yeah.
for them. So,
They got a lot of anglers, big budget.
yeah, Texas is just a different world compared to us.
Yep.
I mean, and I'm not. I love where I live and I'm fine with it, but
Sure.
it's just a different. We get
Yeah.
compared to Texas and Florida all the time, and I'm like, we're comparing apples to oranges and what we can accomplish there.
We've kind of breached on it. Are we going grass or?
Yeah, let's go grass. Let's go grass.
And you've already kind of touched on nutrients.
he was talking about nutrients in the water, and immediately I wanted to ask, how does the grass, because there's a lot of grass growing in Lake Norman, under the waters of Lake Norman, how does that contribute to the nutrient density in the lake?
So nutrients feed grass like it feeds animals. I mean, so
Okay.
your nutrients can be absorbed by the grass. Having grass can absorb nutrients. They can also provide nutrients at times as they break down in the system. So they can do both.
Breakdown as in decompose?
Yeah, as they decompose. So you get it both ways. They absorb their nutrient sink, but they also can add nutrients to the system depending on what the plant is. Lake Norman's got a lot of different plants in it. Some people see, some are very visible, some are not visible. The ones that are kind of visible to most people, I think, would be hydrilla, the eelgrass that's shown
Eelgrass.
up.
Yeah.
Those are kind of the two most visible plants that you will see at Lake Norman. There's other plants. There's an algae called Lingbia that has been in and around Norman now for probably a decade or more.
Is that snotty green stuff?
No, that's a different one. That I'd have to see the snotty green to tell you what it actually is, but it's actually snotty black.
Okay.
Oh,
It's a dark black color.
I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
what is the algae that looks a little orange? Because we grew up on Smith Mountain Lake, and I remember seeing a lot of orange. It's almost like that color of that chair right there.
I'd have to see it. Lingbia might look like that depending on what stage it's in. Lingbia is called black mat algae. It's native to North Carolina, but it has shown up a lot as water quality has changed in our state. It stayed out of Lake Norman for a long time. There's some places on the Yadkin chain that's just inundated with. You do not want to fish on black mat algae. It gets in all your gear. It's terrible.
Baden's got a lot of that, right?
Yeah, Baden's got Tuckertown, Baden. That Yadkin chain has a lot of Lingbia in it now. You really don't want Lingbia, to be blatantly honest with you. It's very, very, of all the grass, it's not a grass, it's an algae. Of all the algae to get rid of, it's the most difficult. Once it's established, it's quite hard to get rid of and very expensive to get rid of.
Right.
So if you have acres and acres and acres of it, it's almost impossible to get rid of because you can't afford to. Whereas the grasses now, like you go back to hydrilla and eelgrass, you can manage those in different ways. You can let it just grow. I mean, there's a lot of different ways to manage grass.
But correct me if I'm wrong. Hydrilla's essentially been eradicated from Norman. No.
Well, it depends on your definition of eradication. Do you visibly see it? No, you don't. So it's not. But so hydrilla is it's an invasive plant. It's not native to North America.
To North America.
Yeah, it's not native to North America. There's
Okay.
Yeah.
Underwater kudzu.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah, it comes very much like that. It grows in very dense mats. Fishermen love it. Particularly early on when it's really growing. It provides a lot of cover for bass. Bass fishermen really, really love hydrilla. There's been a lot of money spent on trying to eradicate hydrilla. What happens
is that a Duke Power thing, or is that a something else
thing?
thing?
I'm not talking about just Lake Norman. I'm talking about across the Southeast.
I got you.
There's been a ton of money to manage hydrilla, particularly down in Florida. Ton of money to manage hydrilla in the state of Florida. There's been a lot of money spent in North Carolina to manage hydrilla. We've had it pop up kind of all over the state in different times and places. The life cycle of hydrilla is kind of unique. It produces these turions, which look like big seeds that live in the soil. And those turions are basically viable 7 to 10 years after they've been dropped by the plant. And so you can not see hydrilla for a fairly significant time. Yeah. And then when you take the control away, usually the control is in the form of grass carp. When you take the control away, those turions will sprout, and then you got hydrilla all over again. And so the purpose of grass carp introductions in that system to control hydrilla is to nip the plant right when it sprouts. And the reason for that is if you do that enough, you'll kill that turion. And so you eventually will eradicate the plant if that's your goal.
Right.
Sometimes that's not the goal in the system, but a lot of times it is. Particularly in North Carolina. So we don't manage hydrilla. The Wildlife Commission does not manage hydrilla. It's another state agency. It's the Division of Water Resources. We're full of them, folks. We got all kinds of we got all kinds of.
We got a lot of words to describe one group.
Yeah. Well, there's 3 different groups.
That's what I'm saying. Like every title has 5 words in it.
Oh yeah, this is the Division of Water Resources. They have a noxious weed or aquatic plant management program, and they basically partner with people that want to manage grass that's in their reservoir. So they are partnering with Duke Energy, Charlotte Mecklenburg Water Supply, and the Lake Authority or something, whatever.
Yeah, Marine Commission. Yeah.
So they're partnering with those groups. They had hydrilla 30 years ago. They basically got rid of it. Then it reappeared, and they have stocked grass carp again to try to control it. And they've basically maintained control. I would not say it's eradicated. The grass carp hadn't been in there long enough for the life cycle of the plant. It's where you don't see it.
Right.
So it's easy to perceive that it's gone.
Well, the perception is reality in the sense that there's no real. There are some places where hydrilla still exists, but it's fairly minimal because we get the report and we see it. There are places where hydrilla still exists, but it's not what it was, say, 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago when it first came back on the scene and it kind of exploded in the Ramsey Creek
got these
area.
big mats everywhere, and
it
people can't get their boats out.
It exploded in Ramsey Creek, and that kind of lit a fire under everybody to control it.
But it's funny because, you know, you talked about eelgrass. I mean, that's prevalent in Ramsey as well, and everybody seems okay with that, right? I mean, can you expand on that a little bit?
Some are okay, some are not. It depends.
Depends who you ask.
It depends on who you ask. I mean, some landowners don't like it, some do, some are fine with it.
Yeah.
It doesn't grow in the as dense a mat as hydrilla does. You can navigate it. It cuts pretty easy for the most part with a prop, you know, if a prop goes through it, whereas hydrilla will wrap a prop.
Oh yeah.
If it's dense enough.
Yeah.
Eelgrass kind of we call it tape grass. It looks like tape. You can actually like cut it like tape a lot of times. Eelgrass, I don't think this particular species of eelgrass is native to our country. I think it is actually an invasive eelgrass. We do have native eelgrasses in North Carolina, but I don't believe this particular species is. I believe it's from somewhere else. It is still concerning, the eelgrass. The thing about eelgrass is it's not as easily eaten by grass carp.
What does it look like?
It depends on the species. It can be anywhere from that thin a blade to about that thick a blade, so about an inch. I think this is a little bit.
But it looks more like grass, and it doesn't.
The stuff I see is it's about an inch.
Yeah, this is a thicker bladed one.
Long and tall. And
I've seen it grow. I've seen it grow 20 feet tall if the water's clear enough.
Jeez.
Yeah, I guess you'd have to have that light penetration.
Yeah, you got to have light penetration to the bottom. But I went to a pond one time. Guys are like, I got eelgrass. I was like, cool. I want to come see it. It's like, sure. I went there and I was like, how deep of water are we in? He's like, oh, it's 20 feet. It's like, freaking eelgrass topped out at 20 feet. What is going on?
That's kind of creepy.
Oh yeah,
that's kind of creepy.
Like,
I would not want to dive down.
I mean, you're like looking at it's like underwater kelp forest. I'm like, what is going on? Like normally that's not normal, but it will grow as far as light will penetrate. It will grow fairly. It'll come all the way up to the surface and kind of top out, what they call topping out. Come up to the surface and lay flat over it. It won't go above the water. It lays in the water. Same as hydrilla.
That's eerie.
Hydrilla won't go above the water either. Hydrilla lays at the surface. It tops out, becomes a big mat.
So, have you seen the grass that we have growing in Davidson?
Yeah.
What is that at the dock?
I do want to say that's hydrilla.
Okay, I was gonna when he started describing it.
Yeah.
Like what is contributing to the growth of that? Because I feel like when I first, this has been a 9-year span that I've been coming to this dock. And over the 9 years, it has gone from a sandy little clamshell scattered bank to now it's all grass. There's no sand.
If it's hydrilla, it's just continue. As long as it's not being predated upon, it's going to keep moving.
Kind of like Bermuda.
It's
like Bermuda
in a way,
right?
Like Bermuda.
Yeah.
So it has nothing to do with the fertilizer coming from people's yards.
It's just finding new places to root itself.
Debunk that myth for me.
It is a plant that can grow in multiple ways. It grows by those turions, which are kind of like seedlings. It grows by, if you cut it in half, that plant that you cut off and it floats away, it's going to find a place to root.
Just like Bermuda, man.
If it flowers, some species of hydrilla flower. If it flowers, it will produce a plant. You know, by flowering, it will produce seeds, and the seeds will float away and be established. Hydrilla is a very good invader.
So it's the Alabama bass of plants.
Yes, it is in a sense, and it will outcompete generally anything native. It'll outcompete other invasive plants. It's generally really good at its invasion, and it will take up primarily everywhere that light will penetrate. It will take that space up.
How do you deal with it?
You deal with mainly. You can do it multiple ways. There's mechanical harvest, which really doesn't work all that great. It gets rid of it temporarily, but it grows right back.
Yeah.
So it's like it's like cutting your grass.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
You can spray it chemically, and that you have to spray it just like all the time because you're trying to kill those turions over a period of time. So you have to spray it a lot. Very expensive. Only really works in real small localized populations of it. And then the real one is grass carp, which are sterile, basically Asian carp, basically, is what they are. They're sterile, though. They won't reproduce.
So that's a constant effort of having to restock those bad boys.
You kind of stock them heavy early on, and then they'll eat for a long period of time, and so that you just supplement your stockings after you stock heavy at the beginning, and so you don't have to stock them all the time. You just stock enough to make sure there's enough in the population to cover your acreage, and eventually, about 10 years, if you do it right and your stocking's right, about 10 years, if eradication is your goal, it will go away, and you won't have to stock anymore until somebody brings it back to the lake, which typically happens. It typically shows up at boat ramps. It comes in on
It's a
people's
trailer
trailers.
thing. Yeah.
It comes in on people's trailers.
That's wild.
That's generally how it.
Sounds
generally,
like
every
poison oak and it passes from your toe to your forehead.
generally every population that we find is around. It starts around a boat ramp.
Mm-hmm.
That's wild.
There are some places, right, that like mandate you like clear the weeds and stuff from them,
Yes.
spray it off, and do
Yes.
the whole 9
There
yards.
are states that have cleaning stations.
Oh yeah, I had seen that. Yeah,
particularly out west.
Yeah.
Like you go, I think like Utah, Nevada.
I mean, because
places,
those lakes
Idaho.
are beautiful. They want to
Yeah,
keep them beautiful.
Yeah, they really, those places. We have a few in North Carolina. Lake Waccama's a place that has a
Yeah.
cleaning station. It's not mandatory, but it does have a cleaning station. They're once again, they're expensive, hard to maintain.
That's
all
another
those
cool
things.
lake.
Yeah. But it is, if everybody, once again, everybody's got to do it. Now out west, it's mandated. You have to. do
Yeah.
it. We don't have those laws in North Carolina. We don't mandate that to be the case. But I would tell you, we have a saying called clean, drain, dry. Clean your trailer, dry your trailer, all that kind of stuff.
Yep.
All your gear, like if you have a live well, drain it. Don't carry that water somewhere else.
Makes
all
sense.
that kind of stuff.
Perfect world. Let's just talk about Norman
Mhm.
because we're on the topic. If you could see grass grow, right? Which ones would you choose? How much would you
Like if you had to have grass.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to manage the population, perfect world scenario, what would you prefer to see?
Funny you should say that.
Right.
We just hit a nerve.
No, didn't hit a nerve.
In a good
so about 10 years ago, our agency started really thinking about how we can affect habitat in reservoirs. It was a bee in my bonnet, bee in another guy's bonnet that I was working with at the time. And
Term.
that's a southern thing, I think, maybe,
Yeah.
bee in the bonnet. I'm old, sorry. We really wanted to figure out how we could affect habitat in North Carolina in reservoir management. Try to make bass fishing a little better. Try to make crappies a little better through habitat. Because generally, the way our reservoirs are formed, they strip all the topsoil, they strip everything out of it, and it becomes a big bathtub. That's pretty much how all our reservoirs are formed.
Yep.
And so you don't have a whole lot of really good growth potential. Generally, what you get is invasives that'll grow in anything. We don't get a lot of native plants. And so what we're really looking for is a diverse plant community, not one monoculture of hydrilla. Even though bass anglers will say that's the greatest thing in the world, truth be told, diverse plants would be the greatest thing in the world.
Right.
Not saying hydrilla is bad. I'm just saying it's a monoculture. So it gives you one thing. So what we started doing was we started growing plants at our depot there in Mebane in Alamance County, just kind of doing research and doing science experiments, taking them out and planting them and being like, is that one going to live?
That sounds like me gardening.
We call that science.
Well, I mean, it was a lot of trial and error.
Yeah,
We'd
yeah,
put
yeah.
them in a high wave situation,
Okay.
on a windy bank.
Yeah,
we'd put
yeah.
them in clay soil. We'd put them back in the muddy muck. Different plants in different scenarios at different depths. I mean, it was all fenced in so that deer couldn't eat it, or
Are you guys doing that at Jordan too? Because
Yeah.
there are fenced in areas at Jordan.
Yeah.
Okay, interesting.
So
It's a lot of lily pads. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but
Yeah.
it's jogging memories now.
Yeah, so
Okay.
so we try to do what we call immersed or emergent plants, meaning plants that come up out of the water. So
Yeah.
like you look at like the pickerel weeds, the bulrushes, the water willows. We also try to do floating leaf like lily pads, lotus, spatterdock. Anyway, all those things. And then we try to do the things that are a lot like hydrilla, the submersed, things that don't come above the water, and really aren't floating leaf. They're just matted up, like pond weeds, eelgrass that's native.
Mm-hmm.
So we're trying to grow all of those things and test all of those things, and we've been doing that going on 10 years. We now have a greenhouse at Sykes. It's brand new. We're just getting it up and running. It's taken us that long to get it funded and get it through, and it'll be a game changer for us in terms of the amount of plants we can produce. We'll be able to produce 500% more than what we're producing now.
Wow.
And so we hope to do with that. We don't have the people power to do all that ourselves, but like if bass clubs want to come get plants and plant plants, or if some just civic organization wants to plant plants in the reservoir, because plants do several things. They help the shoreline erosion. They help with nutrient problems that you may have in your reservoir, and they provide a lot of habitat for animals that they currently don't have. A lot of it is just open water. If there's a dock or if there's riprap or if there's a tree that happened to fall in, that's kind of their habitat. They don't have a lot of that native grass that was pretty common throughout our state, prior to that, all the changes that we've made. The take home to planting is it's a long game. You're trying to jumpstart something that took basically thousands of years to work, and you're trying to do that in a short period of time. So it takes a good 10 to 15 years of planting and working. It's a long game, but we have had successes. Lake Gaston's a great example. If you've ever been to Lake Gaston, we have acres and acres and acres of plants now on Lake Gaston that are well established. And we have some other reservoirs that are starting to become much better established over time.
Right.
And so we hope to do that everywhere that we can. There's landowner interactions that we have to deal with.
I was just going to say. Some are going to be easier than others.
Lake Norman's a tough place.
Right.
It was tried at Lake Norman 20 years ago. I'm not saying we won't ever try it again, because we probably will. But Lake Norman's a tough place. There's a lot of landowners. Landowners don't want that in front of their docks. They want pretty grass and flat, calm water. I get it. But I don't get it. But that's okay. I don't make enough money to own land at Lake Norman, so it's okay. You can donate too.
You could write him.
My Venmo is.
Send a check too.
Drop a check. No, I'm kidding.
Make it to Corey Oakley.
Yeah.
Into wildlife.
Don't make it to the wildlife. I'm kidding. But I say that to say, it's a long game. There's a lot of places we can now have an effect with this new greenhouse. I mean, it's a large greenhouse. It's quite large, quite nice.
Field trip.
And if you want to come see it, just call us and we'll take you on a field trip. And if you have a bass club that's interested in plants, I can get you in touch with the person that runs the place.
Yeah.
We can tell you how to plant. Like this species will do great here.
Right.
Like we've done enough work now that we know we don't even need to fool with that plant because it ain't gonna make it anywhere.
Right.
Yeah. Whereas this plant's tough as nails. You can plant that thing anywhere. And
I hope
do great.
I hope something likes red clay, because that's about all we got in Norman.
Water willow likes red clay.
There we go.
Yeah. Water willow's a pretty tough plant. Water willow grow just about anywhere.
Okay.
It's one of the tougher ones. It's also a plant you don't have to protect. A lot of plants you have to protect early on from predators like turtles.
Yeah.
So you have to cage them in. That's why you see the cages.
Mm-hmm.
And then they expand outside the cages and they're good. But early on you have to protect from turtles. But water willow is one of those that, one, it grows pretty fast and it's pretty woody. So it doesn't need that same protection. So it's kind of a catch-all for a plant that you ain't got to worry about so much. You can just plant it and it'll do fine.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and it's easy to plant, and we grow a ton of it. So
very cool.
Yeah, in fact, I came from there this morning, and we had a half a greenhouse full of water willow that's going somewhere. In fact, I met one of our boats going out. They were going to Grand Mebane Lake, which is in Alamance County. They were planting water willow. So that's what we do mainly in the summertime, is plant plants all throughout the reservoir.
That's the fun stuff.
Planting plants.
I mean,
it's neck deep in mud.
Yeah,
and leeches.
In our world, it's fun.
It sounds fun from sitting here.
Oh no, it's great. I mean, the first time I ever did it, I was like, man, what am I doing? But then when you see the habitat grow and you see the fish and when you do fish surveys and the fish are utilizing it so much, you're like, oh yeah, this is like, one of the people that helped fund the greenhouse called me and said, I really want to help the state of North Carolina, and I want to give X amount of dollars to stock bass. And I said, sir, if that's what you want to do, I will take your money and I'll be glad to do that. I said, but if you really want to have an effect for bass over the long term, it's habitat.
Yeah.
That's really where it's at. It's
Right.
habitat.
Right.
And I was like, and by the way, we're trying to build this thing.
Yeah.
And he got off the phone with me and come back and he's like, all right, I'm going to give you 4 times what I said I was going to give you.
Dang.
Yeah, I'm going to give you 4 times what I said I was going to give you. And,
That's awesome.
And you put it towards habitat. And I could not thank him more.
That's really cool.
The
Yep.
proof's in
Is
the
his name
pudding.
Jay Stevens?
No, not me.
He might have that kind of money. If he does, we can talk later.
Nope.
I got
I told you he's
we
in
got other
finance.
projects we
Nope.
can fund.
Nope. We
I
we
talked
might
too long.
we might be doing good on time here.
Oh, do you want to talk drought?
I don't want to talk drought.
You don't want to talk
I'm
drought?
saying we might have
Oh, we
reached
might have
our
exceeded our time.
yeah.
All right. Well, dude, thank you so much for.
I apologize for talking too much.
No,
No,
that was
it was
excellent.
great.
That was amazing.
We'll have
I'm
you
not
back on to talk drought and not
Yeah.
drought and everything else.
I'm not a fishing guy, and I thought that was amazing.
Yeah,
that was
really
that
cool.
was awesome. That was a lot of knowledge to hear. You're actually the first biologist we brought on the show, so
Might be the last.
you're a landmark. No, we got 2 more coming right after you. But let's talk about a couple things that we've got on the docket as far as like a show perspective. Next week, we're bringing on Rupert, your buddy Rupert.
Yeah, I'm going to hang him later. Don't worry.
But he's going to talk about whitetail habitat. And then we got Hunter Purdue coming on the week after. He's going to talk about North Carolina public land hunting opportunities. And then, do you think it's okay if I say who episode 9 is?
Go ahead and introduce.
We got the John Barclow coming on episode 9. And if you don't, that might not be a name. You didn't know who he was.
Nope.
Everything in this room, minus the fishing gear and the footwear, he had a part in designing. So he's like the guy. I mean, he's got a lot of other titles, but he's like the guy that put the mind behind the matter in all of this stuff. So we're really excited that this like fell in our lap like last week. So we're really excited about that. But that's all we got from a show perspective. Thor, again, thank you so much for coming on and talking with
Appreciate
us.
you having me.
We're excited to have you back on later if you'll come on the show later.
We'll
But
see.
but be sure to go check out Corey's podcast, Better Fishing with Two Bald Biologists.
That's it.
All right, we'll link that down in the show notes below. But thank you again, and that's a wrap.